This morning we are taking a look at new advice to women from a breast cancer survivor turned policy advocate. In fact, her story is going to inspire you this morning. This is Krisdee Clark. She's a breast cancer survivor. As I mentioned, she's also Mrs. American 2022. She has turned her personal battle into a public mission, becoming a powerful voice for women navigating health crises. She works passionately to promote patient-centered care, equitable access to treatment, and education on breast reconstruction options. Breast cancer, listen to this, the second most common cancer in women in the United States. It is the second most common death for American women. There is also an alarming increase in breast cancer in women under the age of 50. That is concerning, with recent studies showing an almost 8% increase in undiagnosed cases, and women's health care is also nearly 20 years behind men's health care in terms of research and treatment development. Well, we have a lot to talk about this morning, and Krisdee Clark herself is here in studio with me this morning. First of all, Krisdee, it's so good to see you. Thank you for being here. We've been talking about sitting down and having this conversation for quite some time. Your story is quite inspiring. You are a 5-year breast cancer survivor, you're a military wife, and you're a mother. Talk to me about your journey. Share with our viewers what you went through, and what about your journey led you to answer this call to become such a powerful advocate?
So my journey really begins in 2020 when COVID was kicking off. We talked about that.
Yes.
And everybody was not doing their mammograms. I had already had my first mammogram at 40 the year before. Everything seemed fine, but I did have dense breast tissue. So I knew I needed to be a little bit on the lookout. I was not one of those check yourself women like you're supposed to be. I was in the shower one day. I felt something. It hurt, which breast cancer, they tell you, usually does not hurt. Went to my doctor, thankful that I had somebody that was able to tell me, we're gonna send you right away for a mammogram. Ended up having a diagnostic, and then was diagnosed with eventually stage 3 invasive lobular carcinoma.
Stage 3, that's pretty serious.
Right before stage 4, right before metastatic, and it was already in 2 of my lymph nodes.
So your journey was unique in that you were younger, on the younger end of the spectrum in terms of what we think a breast cancer patient looks like. What was it that happened during your journey that led you to say, hey, wait, something is really wrong here. I need to do more than just survive this?
It was really being in this and seeing that there weren't a lot of voices. Now, we have voices for research. We have the Susan G. Komens, we have the National Breast Cancer Foundations, all of those. But what we don't have are real voices from real women that have gone through it and survived, but really thrived after. So it was at that point that I decided that I would take my platform and do something I'd never done. I decided to do a pageant. And that was just in South Carolina. They're huge. Everybody loves them. But I'm married, had heard about Mrs. South Carolina, decided to do that, won that pageant, and was thankful to be crowned Mrs. American a month or 2 later or so on the national stage, which really amplified what we need to talk about.
Well, we see a picture of you in the nation's capital. You have really turned this into a national conversation, so much so that you have bills that are being considered right now. I want our viewers to understand what the issue is when it comes to women's health care. You said you have 3 bills that are currently under consideration. Talk to me about those 3 bills and why they're so critical.
Yeah, so women, first of all, were not even introduced until clinical trials until 1993. So
Most people don't know that.
Yeah, can you imagine? 1993, women were not considered for clinical trials. What that means is all the medications, all the drugs, they were tested on men and then given to women as if our bodies are exactly the same.
That doesn't even make sense.
It doesn't. So we are decades behind in all of women's health care. But the 3 bills that are really important right now that we're looking at are the Breast Cancer Equity Act. That is for Medicare to pay for prosthesis for women. So let's say you're a senior woman, you've had to go through a mastectomy, a double mastectomy, or even a single, and you've decided, I don't want to go through reconstruction, or I don't have the funds. Yeah. So what do? They want prosthetics, and they're not paid for. So to even feel whole again, they're not getting those funds.
What else do you feel like people need to know in terms of these bills? I mean, you would hope that these would be bipartisan efforts. What are you finding?
They are bipartisan. The next bill that is extremely important is what we call the ABCD Act. That's the diagnosis one. The reason why that's so important to me, it's being reintroduced in Congress. So this one is extremely important because this is what gives you your diagnostic testing, your MRIs, your ultrasounds. How about women who have dense breast tissue? Yeah. Think about this. A woman comes in, she gets a mammogram. A lot of people are not even fond of mammograms. We're really outdated in the mammography realm. They see a spot, and then they don't have the funds to have something like an MRI, what do? They go home. And they go home and they get metastatic breast cancer. So this bill is important because it lowers the cost or allows people to have MRIs or diagnostic testing. It is extremely important.
So for all of our viewers, I can just imagine people at home saying, oh my gosh, I did not know that. What can our viewers do just quickly? We have about 20 seconds left.
Call your Congress, call your representatives, get the ABCDE Act or ABCD Act passed. We need this more than anything.
And those are currently being considered right now.
They
so
are,
people
that
need
one
to act
especially.
now.
Absolutely.
All right. Krisdee Clark, thank you so much for stopping by and sharing this with us, because like you said, this affects so many women, and everyone watching has a woman in their life that they love. So we want to make sure that we have more survival stories
Absolutely.
to talk about. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
And thank you for your dedication to this.
Thank you.